Hey there, today's video is concerning rust resistance. So we're looking mainly at two newish knives with new steels, looking at CTS BDZ1 on the SOG Terminus XR, the new flipping version of the XR. Notably different to the Terminus original steel, which was BD1, not BDZ1. BD1 being a steel with about 0.15% more carbon in it than this one here. So just something of note. And then on this knife we're looking at a viewer's request, the stainlessness of the Massdrops S35VN. I'll also test the edge retention. This is of course from Wee Knives on the Ray Laconico Keen. So to do any testing at all, we're going to have to go to a place that I like to call
the Knife Lab.
Alright, so to test these steels, I have them versus a couple of other ones that I am more certain of what effects there will be. So I've chosen a steel that I know definitely will rust, which is M4 steel, and I've chosen a steel that I know will not rust, which is LC200N, and I've also thrown in as a common performer VG10 on a Spyderco Delica. So my first test was actually a bit of a failure, and I remembered why after I'd set it up. First test, I just stuck the knives about halfway per blade into a lemon and then left them overnight, and absolutely nothing happened. I think lemons may have a combination of acidity and oiliness that may well deter much of a patina or much rust forming at all. So overnight, not even the M4 picked up any sort of real meaningful tarnishing. Before all of my tests, I do also wipe down with an alcohol swab just to get any possible sort of surface material off from something else. I give it a pretty vigorous wipe down. So with that test being a relative failure, I then went and did what I know to be always a surefire ruster, my salt water solution, which is about 3 grams of salt per 100 mils of water, makes for a slightly more saline than the C solution, the C being usually 3.5 grams per 100 mils, or 3.5% salt. So that's what I went with, and then I did a overnight, no it wasn't overnight, it was about 3 hours of sitting. Once the M4 looked really bad, I stopped the test and wiped them all clean. So, interestingly enough, the M4, well, not interesting at all really, the M4 was the least good at not rusting. That's because it's a tall steel and it's not made to resist corrosion. It's made to be tough and hold an edge for a good long time and perform at high speeds and therefore at high heat resistance and all those sorts of things. Good stuff, but yes, not a good kayaking knife steel for sure. The next steel that I feel, having examined them all and given them all sort of a bit of a look over, the next poorest performer was the CTS BDZ. Z, as someone pointed out, I should really be saying Z because I learnt the Queen's English. The BDZ1. It's a bit more of a mouthful though. The BDZ1 on the SOG definitely seemed to rust about as much as, say, a AUS8 or a 8CR13 MOV. An AUS8 is a bit of a different one. Some of it, I noticed on my Almar Falcon, it's really hard to get that to rust, but then I've had some cheaper knives in AUS8 from K-Bar and stuff, and they've rusted fairly easily. So it acted like, the less good AUS8 or like 8CR13 MOV often acts, is in it resists, rust in a passing way, but not particularly great as a dedicated, food knife or something where you're going to be coming across lots of water and maybe forgetting to treat it. The next best knife was VG10. The VG10 had taken some orange spots on it, not as much as the BDZ1 though, for sure. And then after that, the Mass Drops Keen's S35VN seems to do really, really well. Just a few superficial oranging spots, which of course wiped off, no worries whatsoever. And then, as I said, the LC200N was bulletproof. It did not rust. It takes a lot more than a spraying of salt water and leaving it there to make LC200N do much other than sit there and maybe get a little bit cloudy. So that was the rough ordering of things. I found the M4 rusted the most, then the BDZ1, and then the VG10, then the S35VN, and then the LC200N. And I wasn't particularly surprised by those results. I have noticed another thing. I cleaned off all of these afterwards with an alcohol swab. I found the VG10, the S35VN, and obviously the LC200N cleaned up back to pretty much perfect looking, or as they were before the test. The SOG had to take a little bit more time. I had to use the aluminium oxide side of a scrubber to get that rust off. Another thing about this SOG, and I guess I'll cover this more in my review too, is that it's been in my pocket today at work, and it was a bit of a warmer day, so you know, my pocket was probably not the driest place in the world, but at no point was I caked in sweat either. I did notice that the SOG has, again, even after being cleaned up, has rusted on me, you know, fairly obviously, really. Like, I'll show you some up-close shots of it now that I actually took at my desk at work. And yeah, it's not a slight thing. So this still does not seem to be particularly stainless in comparison to, say, VG10 or S35VN. It's definitely still a stainless steel because, you know, it didn't do what M4 did, but just something to note, this BDZ1 on this SOG, especially on the more machined finish areas, the flats, does seem to be a little more prone to rust than, say, the average stainless steel. But that's just my account from my one knife. So of course, if you've got any other experience, I always like to say, don't tell me, show me, but if you just have to tell me, then tell me below in the comments. And that's totally fine too. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this somewhat interesting, and I'll see you all in the next video, which will probably be getting towards reviewing this SOG Terminus XR, which I'm finding is a really nice knife, nicely designed knife, good action. I like most things about it, but I gotta say, I'm not super impressed with the steel so far. But, you know, given the price that you're paying, I feel like they maybe could have afforded something a little bit better that does either edge holding or rust resistance a bit better than just kind of doing both of them in a fairly average way. But as I said in the edge test for this, it is basically just HCR13 MOV slightly different. Alright guys, see you in the next one. Goodbye.